side, where Bellevue Farm stretched out like a well-kept secret. Far from the main roads, the property seemed to exist in its own time, protected by high fences and gates that were always locked. Rachel woke up as always to the sound of the rooster crowing in the yard. Her 17 years seemed to carry the weight of an entire lifetime lived within those colonial walls. She descended the waxed wooden stairs, her steps echoing in the heavy silence of the main house. "Good morning, Dr. Thompson," she murmured, upon finding the man on the porch, drinking his coffee while observing the pastures through his reading glasses. "Good morning, dear." Owen Thompson was an imposing man, with well-groomed grey hair and always impeccable clothes. In town, everyone knew him as a prosperous and generous businessman, patron of the local church and benefactor of the agricultural school. "Did you sleep well?" "Yes, sir." Rachel served herself coffee in a flowered porcelain cup, sitting in the chair she always occupied, never beside him, always across, where she could be observed. "The veterinarian is coming today to examine the horses. You will stay in your room during the visit." His voice was calm, almost paternal, but carried an authority that did not allow for questioning. "May I ask why?" The words came out before she could contain them. Rachel immediately lowered her eyes, regretting her boldness. Silence settled between them like a heavy cloud. Owen folded the newspaper slowly, his eyes fixed on her for long seconds. "You know I'm very careful with your safety, Rachel. Horses are unpredictable animals, and you—" He made a calculated pause. "You are too sensitive for certain situations." She nodded, well familiar with this conversation. Since she was little, she had heard about her supposed fragility, about how the world out there was too dangerous for someone like her. She didn't attend the town school, had no friends, received no visitors. Her education came from books that Owen personally selected, and from the lessons he himself gave on history, literature, and basic mathematics. "What happened to my parents again?" The question escaped as a whisper, almost inaudible. Owen sighed deeply, as if the memory caused him pain. "We've talked about this, dear. Your parents passed away when you were very small. I promised them I would take care of you as if you were my own daughter. But I don't remember anything, not their faces, not what it was like before coming here. You were just a child. It's natural that you don't remember." He stood up, signaling the end of the conversation. "Finish your coffee and get ready. I want you in your room before 10 o'clock. Rachel watched him walk toward the stables, his elegant figure contrasting with the rusticity of the rural environment. Alone on the porch, she allowed herself a few minutes of contemplation. Sometimes, when the wind blew from a certain direction, she swore she could hear distant voices, fragments of conversations that seemed to come from another life. Her earliest memories were hazy, like half-forgotten dreams. She vaguely remembered a woman with a sweet smile singing lullabies, but when she tried to focus on the image, it dissolved like morning mist. At 9:30, as instructed, Rachel retreated to her room on the second floor. From the window, she could see part of the courtyard and the stables. Around 10 o'clock, a white truck arrived, raising dust on the dirt road. 2 people got out, a man in a lab coat and a woman with a clipboard in hand. But what came next caught her attention. A trailer opened, and out came the most beautiful horse she had ever seen. It was large, with a dark brown coat that shone under the sun, with a presence that seemed to fill all the space around it. Something about the animal's behavior intrigued her. While the veterinarians talked with Owen, the horse kept its head held high, ears alert, as if analyzing every detail of the environment. When Owen approached to greet it, the animal slightly backed away, nostrils flared. Rachel pressed her face against the window, fascinated. It was as if the horse could sense something that humans didn't perceive. At that moment, as if detecting her presence, the animal looked directly at her window. Their gazes met through the glass, and Rachel felt an inexplicable connection, as if that being understood exactly what she felt. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give a like. Tell us which city you're watching from. We continue. After the veterinarians left, Rachel remained in her room until Owen knocked on her door, releasing her for lunch. During the meal, he seemed more talkative than usual. "The horse is called Centaur," he said, cutting a piece of roast meat. "He's a retired police horse. He'll be staying here temporarily for rehabilitation." "Rehabilitation from what?" Rachel asked, serving herself some rice. "He suffered an accident while on duty. Nothing serious, but he needs special care." Owen took a sip of water, observing her carefully. "That's why it's even more important that you keep your distance. Police horses have different training, they can be unpredictable." Rachel nodded, but internally questioned the logic. If the animal needed rehabilitation, why had Owen accepted it on the farm? He had always been extremely cautious about anything. That might represent the slightest risk to her. "The veterinarian in charge will make regular visits," he continued. "Dr. Jennifer Davis, a specialist in rescued animals. During these visits, I want you to keep busy with your studies." That afternoon, Rachel managed to get a few minutes on the back porch, where she usually read when Owen went out to handle business in town. From there, she had a partial view of the stables. Centaur was in a paddock, separate from the other. Horses walking back and forth with precise movements. When she appeared on the porch, the animal immediately stopped and turned its head in her direction. For several minutes they remained like this, observing each other across the distance. There was something in the horse's posture that conveyed intelligence, as if it understood much more than an ordinary animal. "Centaur," she murmured, testing the name. The horse's ears perked up, as if it had heard her impossible whisper. In the following days, this silent routine was repeated. Rachel took advantage of any moment of freedom to observe the horse, and it always stopped its activities to stare. Back at her, it was a ritual that brought a little color to the monotony of her days. But it was on Thursday that something different happened. Owen had left early for a meeting with other farmers, leaving Rachel under the care of Mrs. Connie, the cook who came 3 times a week to prepare meals. "That horse has been acting strange," commented Mrs. Connie, while peeling potatoes in the kitchen. "Last night it kept neighing non-stop, even woke up the caretaker. Maybe it's adjusting to the new place," suggested Rachel, trying to appear disinterested. "Could be. But Joe said that every time the boss approaches the stable, the animal gets agitated, stamps its hooves on the ground, rears up. Strange thing." Rachel pretended to be concentrating on her history book, but every word from the cook echoed in her mind. Why would Centaur react specifically to Owen? When Mrs. Connie went to hang clothes on the line, Rachel had a bold idea. She went down to the kitchen and through the back window observed the movement in the yard. Caretaker Joe was in the tool shed, far from the stables. This was her chance. She went out through the back of the house, walking as silently as possible until she got close to Centaur's paddock. The horse saw her approach and walked to the fence, lowering its head as if greeting her. "Hi, boy," she whispered, cautiously extending her hand. To her surprise, Centaur sniffed her fingers delicately and then pressed his muzzle against her palm. His skin was soft and warm. That's when she heard the sound of an engine approaching. Owen was returning earlier than expected. Rachel ran back to the house, her heart racing from the excitement of the secret encounter and from fear of being discovered. She managed to reach her room in time, but from the window, she saw the scene that unfolded in the yard. When Owen got out of the car and walked toward the stables, Centaur began to show clear signs of agitation. He reared slightly, stamped his hooves on the ground, and moved to the farthest corner of the paddock. "What the devil?" she heard Owen mutter, stopping a few meters from the fence. Joe appeared running, concerned. "He's been like that since he arrived, Doctor. Only gets agitated when you approach. With others, he's as gentle as a lamb." Owen stood still for a long moment, observing the horse with an expression Rachel had never seen before. It wasn't anger, nor impatience. It was something deeper, more disturbing. "Keep him isolated from the other animals," he finally ordered. "And if any strangers come to the farm, let me know immediately." That night, lying in her bed, Rachel couldn't stop thinking about Centaur's reaction. Animals had keen instincts, could perceive things that humans didn't notice. What exactly did that horse feel about Owen? And why, for the first time in years, was she beginning to question whether she really knew the man who claimed to be taking care of her? The week that followed brought growing unrest for Rachel. Centaur's behavior continued to intrigue her, especially after witnessing more episodes of agitation whenever Owen approached the stables. It was as if the animal could see something that remained hidden from human eyes. One Tuesday afternoon, while Owen was attending a meeting of the Rural Association in town, Rachel decided to make an exploration she had been planning for days. She went down to Owen's office, a room that was strictly forbidden to her. The door was locked, but she knew where he kept the spare key, behind the St. George painting in the hallway. Her hands trembled when she turned the key in the lock, aware that she was violating one of the most serious rules of the house. The office smelled of leather and waxed wood. There was a large mahogany desk, shelves filled with law books and documents, and a metal filing cabinet. Rachel first went to the desk drawers, looking for anything that might clarify her origin. In the bottom drawer, she found a folder with legal documents. Her birth certificate was there, but something bothered her. The date seemed different from what she had always known to be her birthday. According to the document, she had been born 3 months earlier than she thought. "This can't be right," she murmured, comparing it with other papers. That's when she found something that made her heart stop. At the bottom of the folder was an old yellowed photograph. It showed a young woman with brown hair and a radiant smile, holding a small child in her arms. The woman had Rachel's same eyes, the same curve of her smile. She turned the photo over and read the handwritten name, Laura and Rachel, 2008. Her legs went weak. Who was Laura? Why had Owen never mentioned this name? And why did the child in the photo seem so familiar? The sound of an engine approaching made her quickly put the photograph in her pocket and put everything back in place. She ran to her room, arriving breathless. A few minutes later, she heard Owen enter the house. That night, Rachel could barely sleep. She spent hours looking at the photograph in the moonlight that came through the window. The woman, Laura, had an expression of pure love as she looked at the child. It wasn't the look of a stranger, but of someone deeply connected to that little girl. The next morning, during breakfast, Rachel gathered courage to ask an apparently innocent question. "Dr. Thompson, did you know my mother personally?" He raised his eyes from the newspaper, an expression of surprise crossing his face for an instant before he composed himself. "Of course, dear. We were family friends. Why do you ask?" "Just curiosity. Sometimes I have strange dreams with a woman singing lullabies. I thought it might be a memory of her." Owen folded the newspaper slowly, his gaze fixed on her. "Childhood memories can be confusing, Rachel. Sometimes our brain creates images that don't correspond to reality." "What was she like? Physically, I mean—" The pause was too long. "She was a simple woman, dark hair, short stature, very different from you, actually." Rachel nodded, but the description didn't match the woman in the photograph. Laura was tall, elegant, with delicate features that very much resembled her own. Later, when Owen went out to check the corn plantation, Rachel had an idea. She went down to the yard and, for the first time, deliberately walked to Centaur's paddock. The horse saw her approach and trotted in her direction, clearly happy to see her. "Hi, boy," she whispered, extending her hand. "You can see things that we can't you?" Centaur pressed his muzzle against her hand, and she felt a strange connection, as if the animal understood her confusion. That's when something unusual happened. The horse moved away from the fence and began to walk toward an area near the barn, stopping frequently to look back, as if wanting her to follow. Intrigued, Rachel went around the paddock and walked to where Centaur had stopped. The animal lowered its head and began to sniff the ground, nostrils dilated. Then, with deliberate movements, it began to dig at the earth with its hooves. "What are you doing?" she asked, bending down to examine the spot. The earth there seemed different, looser, as if it had been recently disturbed. Centaur continued digging, and Rachel, driven by an impulse, began to help him with her hands. It didn't take long for her fingers to find something solid. It was a metal can, rusted by time. Inside, protected by plastic, were more photographs and some folded papers. Rachel's hands trembled when she recognized Laura's face in several of the photos. Always smiling, always with the same child in her arms. A child who was clearly herself, just at different ages. One of the papers was a letter, written in a feminine and delicate handwriting. It began with, "My dear Rachel," and ended with, "All my love, Mom Laura." Rachel's world collapsed in that moment. Everything she believed about her origin was wrong. Laura wasn't a stranger. She was her real mother. And if these letters existed, it meant she had tried to maintain contact. What had happened to her? And why had Owen lied about everything? The discovery of the letters left Rachel in a state of shock for the following days. She had hidden them in her room, behind a loose floorboard she had discovered years before. Each word written by Laura was like a stab in her chest, confirming that there was a mother who loved her and who had tried to maintain contact. "My little princess, Mommy can't see you right now, but thinks of you every day. As soon as I get better, we'll be together again. I love you more than all the stars in the sky." The letter was dated 2010, just 2 years after the photograph. If Laura was alive then, what had happened to her afterward? On Thursday came the day of the first visit from the veterinarian responsible for Centaur. Rachel was instructed to remain in her room, as always happened during visits, but this time her curiosity spoke louder. She positioned herself at the eye window, trying to observe everything she could. The woman who got out of the pickup truck was different from what Rachel expected. Jennifer Davis was around 40, with curly hair tied in a practical ponytail, and moved with the confidence of someone who was accustomed to dealing with large animals. What caught Rachel's attention was Centaur's reaction to the veterinarian's arrival. The horse, which always remained alert and suspicious with strangers, approached the fence with curiosity, allowing her to examine him without resistance. "He's adapting well," she heard Jennifer comment to Owen, her voice carrying on the morning breeze. "But I've noticed some interesting behaviors. According to the police report, Centaur has always been an animal particularly sensitive to tensions and anomalous situations." "So what do you mean by that?" Owen's voice sounded tense. "Police horses are trained to detect signs of danger that we humans often ignore. If he's showing specific agitation, he might be perceiving something we should investigate." Rachel saw Owen move slightly away, hands in his pockets. "I think he's just getting used to the new environment. Horses are animals sensitive to changes." "Could be," Jennifer continued examining Centaur, making notes on a clipboard. "But I'd like to ask some questions about the farm routine, if you don't mind. It's protocol for the animal's well-being." "Of course, ask away. How many people live here regularly?" "Just me and my ward, a young woman I've cared for since she was little." "I see. And does she have contact with the animals?" The pause was long. "No. Rachel is a delicate girl. I prefer to keep her away from the horses for safety." Jennifer raised her eyes from the clipboard, a curious look crossing her face. "How old is she?" 17. That's an age when most young people already have quite a bit of autonomy, especially in a rural environment. Rachel is special. Requires differentiated care. Rachel noticed that Jennifer had stopped writing and was observing Owen with renewed attention. There was something in his tone that didn't sound natural, even to someone who had known him for years. "May I meet her?" Sometimes young people become interested in equine therapy, and Centaur has a temperament very suitable for this type of activity. "I'm afraid that's not possible. She's studying, doesn't like to be interrupted." "Of course." Jennifer turned her attention back to Centaur, who had positioned himself to have a clear view of the house. The horse kept his ears erect, as if listening to something beyond what humans could perceive. That's when something happened that made Rachel's heart race. Centaur looked directly at her window and neighed softly, an almost musical sound. Jennifer followed the animal's gaze, and for a brief moment, their eyes met through the glass. The veterinarian said nothing, but Rachel saw when she made a quick note on her clipboard before returning to talk with Owen about technical care. After the consultation ended, Rachel went down for lunch, finding Owen visibly disturbed. "The veterinarian seemed very interested in knowing about our routine," he commented, cutting the meat with 2 precise movements. "That's normal, isn't it? She must want to ensure that Centaur is being well cared for." "Perhaps." Owen observed her over his glasses. But I noticed you were at the window during the visit. I thought I had made it clear that during these occasions you should keep busy with your studies. Rachel's stomach contracted. Sorry, I was just curious about the horse. Curiosity isn't always a good thing, Rachel. Sometimes it's better to trust the people who know what's best for us. That afternoon, while Owen napped in his armchair after lunch, Rachel had a risky idea. She went down to the kitchen phone and, consulting the phone book, found the number of the veterinary clinic where Jennifer worked. With her heart beating fast, she dialed the number. Hello, Vital Animal Veterinary Clinic, good afternoon. Hi, I'd like to speak with Dr. Jennifer Davis, please. Who would like to speak with her? Rachel hesitated. It's about the horse Centaur. I'm from Bellevue Farm. One moment, please. Seconds later, Jennifer's voice came on the line. Hello, who am I speaking with? Dr. Jennifer, my name is Rachel. I live on the farm where you examined Centaur today. There was a pause. Ah, yes. You're the young woman. Who was at the window? You saw me? Centaur showed me where you were. He's a very intelligent animal. Jennifer's voice was gentle, but there was something more behind it. May I ask why you're calling? Rachel took a deep breath. It was now or never. I need help, and I think Centaur is trying to show me something important. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give a like. Tell us which city you're watching from. We continue. Rachel? Jennifer's voice through the phone was careful but encouraging. Can you explain to me better what's happening? With trembling hands, Rachel looked toward the living room where Owen was napping. The sound of his heavy breathing confirmed that he was still asleep. I can't talk much right now, she whispered, but I found some things about my mother. Dr. Thompson told me she had passed away when I was little, but I have photographs that prove that's not true. I understand. Jennifer paused. Rachel, do you feel safe there? The question caught her off guard. No one had ever questioned her safety before. I don't know. I never thought about it that way. Tell me something. Do you have the freedom to leave the farm when you want? To visit town, make friends? No, Dr. Thompson says I'm too sensitive for the world out there. And do you agree with that? Rachel had never asked herself that question directly. I don't know if I agree or not. It's been this way forever. Listen, Rachel. I need you to know that you can count on me, okay? If you need anything at all, you can call me. Dr. Jennifer, do you know anyone named Laura Richards? The silence on the other end of the line was too long. When Jennifer spoke again, her voice had changed. May I ask where you heard that name? It was written on the back of a photograph. I found a woman with a small child. The child is me. Rachel, I need you to be very careful. Can you keep those photographs in a safe place? I already have, but why are you concerned? Do you know Laura? I might have heard of her, but I need to verify some things before giving you any information. Can you wait until my next visit? The sound of movement in the living room made Rachel panic. I have to hang up. He's waking up. Rachel, remember anything, call me anytime. She quickly hung up and ran back to her room, arriving breathless. A few minutes later, she heard Owen calling for her. Rachel, where are you? Here in my room studying, she replied, trying to normalize her breathing. Come down for afternoon tea. During the snack, Owen seemed more observant than usual. His eyes followed her every movement, every expression. You seem restless today, he commented, spreading butter on cornbread. I'm fine. Maybe a little tired from studying. What subject are you studying? The question caught her off guard. History of the United States. What period? Rachel swallowed hard. She hadn't studied history that day. The independence. Owen nodded slowly, but she noticed that he hadn't completely believed the answer. That night, after dinner, Rachel decided to make another test. For years, she had never questioned the restrictions imposed by Owen, but now Jennifer's words echoed in her mind. Dr. Thompson, may I go to town tomorrow? I'd like to buy some new books. He stopped reading the newspaper and looked at her over his glasses. What do you need new books for? You have an entire library here at home. They're all old books. I'd like to read something more current. Current. Books are full of ideas inappropriate for a girl your age. I prefer to personally select what you read. But I'm already 17. In town, girls my age drive cars, work. Owen's expression hardened. Rachel, we've talked about this several times. You're not like other girls. You have special needs. That require specific care. What special needs? I've never been to a doctor, never had exams. How do you know I have any problem? The silence that followed was heavy. Owen folded the newspaper slowly, his movements deliberate. I think you've been asking too many questions lately, Rachel. That's not a good sign. Questions are bad. When they demonstrate ingratitude and mistrust, yes. He rose from his armchair. I'm going up to my room. I suggest you reflect on the luck you have to live in a safe place, protected from all the evils of the world. After he went upstairs, Rachel remained in the living room, processing the conversation. For the first time, she had felt something like fear in Owen's presence. Not physical fear, but the fear of someone who realizes that their entire reality might be a false construction. Later, in her room, she removed the photographs and letters from their hiding place and examined them again in the moonlight. There were details she hadn't noticed before. In one of the photos, Laura wore a delicate necklace with a small golden star. Rachel unconsciously touched her own neck, where she had a small birthmark in a similar shape. In another photograph, in the background, it was possible to see part of a street sign. Flower Street, she managed to decipher. Would it be possible to find out where that street was? That night, Rachel woke to the sound of neighing coming from the stables. Through the window, she saw Centaur walking agitated in his paddock, ears erect, as if he had heard something alarming. Then she noticed a light on in Owen's office. He was awake at that hour, doing what? She went silently down the stairs and hid behind the partially open office door. Owen was on the phone, his voice low but clearly altered. I know she's asking questions. I need you to come early tomorrow. Yes, as we agreed. No, she can't continue like this. We need to resolve this definitively. Rachel's blood froze. Resolve what? And who was the person he was talking to? When she heard Owen's footsteps. Approaching the door, she ran back to her room, her heart beating so hard she feared he might hear it. For the first time in her life, Rachel felt she was in real danger. And now she knew she needed to act quickly. Rachel could barely sleep after overhearing Owen's phone conversation. She spent the entire night trying to understand what resolve this definitively meant. Her worst suspicions began to form, but she pushed them away for being too frightening. The next morning, during breakfast, Owen seemed calmer than the night before, which made her even more nervous. He leafed through the local newspaper with apparent tranquility, occasionally commenting on irrelevant news. We'll have a visitor today, he announced, without raising his eyes from the newspaper. A doctor friend of mine will come to do a routine evaluation. What kind of evaluation? Rachel tried to keep her voice neutral. Nothing major, just some basic exams to check how you're developing. It's been a while since you had a medical consultation. I've never had a medical consultation, she corrected. Exactly. That's why it's important to do this evaluation now. Something in his tone alerted her. May I ask this doctor's name? Dr. Henry Stewart, very competent neurologist. Owen folded the newspaper and looked at her directly. I want you to treat him with respect and answer all the questions he asks. Is that clear? Clear. Rachel forced a smile, but inside she felt a sense of a trap closing. Around 10 o'clock, a black car arrived at the farm. Rachel watched from her bedroom window as a man of approximately 50, wearing a white lab coat, got out carrying a leather briefcase. A few minutes later, Owen knocked on her door. Rachel, come down to meet Dr. Henry. The doctor was a man with a serious appearance, grey hair combed back and thick-framed glasses. He greeted her with a firm handshake, but his eyes seemed to be evaluating every detail of her appearance. So, you're the famous Rachel, he said, his voice professional, but cold. Owen has told me a lot about you. It's a pleasure to meet you, Doctor. The feeling is mutual. How about we talk a little? I have some simple questions. They sat in the living room, with Owen strategically positioned where he could hear every word. Dr. Henry opened his briefcase and took out a clipboard with forms. Tell me about your daily routine, Rachel. I wake up early, have breakfast, study, read, help with small household tasks, and social activities, friends, outings. I don't leave the farm much. Why not? Rachel looked at Owen, who nodded encouragingly. Dr. Thompson says I'm too sensitive for the outside world. I understand. And do you agree with that assessment? The question echoed the same one that Jennifer had asked. I never questioned it. Dr. Henry made some notes. Have you been having strange dreams lately? Confused thoughts, fantasies about people who don't exist? I'm not sure I understand. For example, imagining you have different parents than the ones you actually had, creating stories about a previous life that never existed. Rachel's heart raced. How did he know about her discoveries? No. Are you sure? Owen told me. You've been asking questions about your origin, creating fanciful theories about your family. They're not fantasies, she said, her voice coming out firmer than she intended. Dr. Henry exchanged a significant look with Owen. I'll need to administer a medication to help you relax. Sometimes, when the mind is confused, a mild sedative can bring clarity. Medication? But I'm not sick. It's just a preventive procedure. The doctor was already preparing a syringe. You'll feel much better afterward. I don't want to take any medication. Rachel, Owen approached, his voice taking on the authoritative tone she knew well. Don't be difficult. The doctor is here to help. But I don't need help, I'm fine. It was at that moment that the sound of loud and repeated neighing began to come from the stables. Centaur was visibly agitated, his neighing echoing across the property like an alarm. What's that noise? Dr. Henry asked, clearly bothered. It's just a horse. Been a bit nervous lately, explained Owen. But the neighing intensified, accompanied by the sound of hooves beating against the wooden fence. It was as if Centaur was trying to escape from the paddock. I need to check what's happening, said Owen, heading for the door. I'll come with you, Rachel quickly offered. No, you stay here with the doctor. I'll be right back. As soon as Owen left, Dr. Henry approached Rachel with the syringe in hand. It will be quick, girl, just a little prick. I said I don't want to. Rachel backed toward the window. It's not a choice, dear. It's for your own good. That's... When she saw through the window that a familiar pickup truck was arriving on the dirt road, it was Jennifer. The relief she felt was immense. Without thinking twice, she ran for the door, but Dr. Henry intercepted her. Where do you think you're going? Let me go! Rachel struggled to free herself from his grip. Outside, Centaur's neighing became almost desperate. The animal had managed to break part of the fence and was galloping freely across the yard, clearly heading toward the house. The front door opened and Jennifer entered, followed by Owen, who seemed visibly displeased. Dr. Jennifer hadn't scheduled. A consultation for today, he said, his irritation barely disguised in his voice. Centaur was showing signs of extreme stress. I came to check if everything is okay. Jennifer stopped at the living room door, observing the scene. Dr. Henry holding Rachel by the arm, the syringe in his other hand, the young woman clearly in panic. What's happening here? Her voice cut through the air like a blade. Nothing. Pager, just a routine medical procedure, Dr. Henry tried to explain, but didn't release Rachel. Jennifer advanced into the living room, her posture professional but alert. Rachel, are you okay? Dr. Jennifer, please help me, Rachel managed to say before Dr. Henry tightened his grip on her arm. Release her immediately, Jennifer ordered, her voice carrying an authority that made the doctor hesitate. Doctor, this is none of your business, Owen tried to intervene. When I see a young woman being coerced, it becomes my business. Jennifer took out her cell phone. Either you release her now or I call the police. The tension in the room was palpable. Outside, Centaur had stopped right in front of the living room window, like a vigilant sentinel. Dr. Henry looked at Owen, clearly waiting for instructions. Rachel realized that this was the decisive moment. Either she would free herself now, or perhaps she would never have another opportunity. The sound of the police siren cutting through the morning air made Dr. Henry immediately release Rachel's arm. Jennifer had fulfilled her threat and called the authorities while keeping her eyes fixed on the scene. You don't know what you're doing, muttered Owen, his composure finally cracking. This girl needs special care. The only special care she needs is to be protected from you, replied Jennifer, positioning herself between Rachel and the two men. Minutes later, two police officers entered the house, led by Detective Carla Mitchell, a middle-aged woman with a serious expression and an experienced gaze. "Can someone explain to me what's happening here?" she asked, observing the scene with attention. "Detective, there's been a misunderstanding," Owen tried to use his most cordial tone. "This is my ward, Rachel. She has emotional problems, and Dr. Henry came to administer a sedative to help her." "That's a lie," Rachel found her voice. "He wanted to give me an injection by force. I didn't consent to anything." Detective Carla approached Rachel. "How old are you?" 17. "And do you have any diagnosed mental health problem?" "I don't know. I've never been to any doctor before." The detective frowned. "What do you mean you've never been to any doctor?" "Dr. Thompson always said I was too sensitive to leave the farm. He never took me for medical consultations." Carla Mitchell exchanged a significant look with Jennifer. "Dr. Davis, was it you who made the report?" "Yes, Detective, I arrived here and found this man," she pointed to Dr. Henry, "trying to administer an injection to the young woman against her will." "May I see your documentation, Doctor?" Carla extended her hand. Dr. Henry hesitated before handing over an ID card. Carla examined the document carefully. "Henry Stewart. Interesting. According to our records, you had your medical license revoked 3 years ago for irregular practices." The man turned pale. That was a misunderstanding." "Administering medications without consent and with false documentation is not a misunderstanding, it's a crime." Carla signaled to one of the officers. "Arrest him." While Dr. Henry was handcuffed, Carla turned her attention to Owen. "Mr. Thompson, I need you to come with me to provide clarification." "This is absurd. I'm a respected citizen in this town, and, so exactly because of that, I need to understand why you're involved with an unlicensed doctor trying to sedate a minor." Rachel observed everything in a state of shock. Everything was happening very quickly. That's when she remembered the photographs and letters hidden in her room. "Detective," she called, her voice trembling, "I have some things I need to show you. Things about my real family." Carla nodded. "Jennifer, can you accompany Rachel while she collects what she needs? I don't want her to be alone." In the following minutes, Rachel showed Carla and Jennifer the photographs and letters she had found. The detective examined each item with growing attention. "Laura Richards." Carla murmured, "That name is familiar to me." She picked up the phone and made a quick call. "I need you to search the archives for a woman named Laura Richards. Yes, I want all records from the last 15 years. While they waited, Jennifer sat beside Rachel on the living room sofa. "How did you know?" Rachel asked. "How did you know? I was in danger?" "Centaur showed me. When I arrived here, he was almost destroying the stable trying to get out. Ex-police horses have keen instincts for dangerous situations. He knew something was wrong." As if having heard his name, Centaur appeared at the window, now calm, observing them with his intelligent eyes. "Besides," continued Jennifer, "after our phone conversation, I did some research. The name Laura Richards appeared in some old records." Carla's phone rang. She answered, and her expression changed as she listened to the information. "I understand. Yes, give me the address. Thank you." She hung up and looked at Rachel with an expression that mixed compassion and determination. "Rachel, I have important news for you. Laura Richards is alive." The world stopped for Rachel. "What?" "She lives here in Lakeside on Flower Street, works as a teacher at the municipal school. 15 years ago, she suffered a serious car accident and was hospitalized for several months. During that period, she lost custody of her daughter due to questionable legal maneuvers." "Legal maneuvers?" Jennifer asked. "Owen Thompson used his political influence and falsified documents to illegally obtain custody of Rachel. Since then, Laura has been fighting in court, trying to prove that her daughter was unjustly taken from her." Rachel felt tears running down her face. My mother is alive and trying to find me." "Not only that." She never stopped looking for you. She has had a case running against Owen for years, but he always managed to use his influence to delay the proceedings. Can I see her? Carla smiled for the first time since she had arrived. Not only can you, but I'm going to take you to her right now. An hour later, Rachel was standing in front of a simple house on Flower Street, the same street she had seen in the background of one of the photographs. Carla knocked on the door, and when it opened, Rachel saw the face she had admired so many times in the hidden photos. Laura had grayer hair now. Some expression lines marked her face, but her eyes were exactly the same as those Rachel saw in the mirror. My God, Laura whispered, her hands trembling. Rachel. Mom. It was the first time in 15 years that Rachel had pronounced that word, addressing someone real. When Laura wrapped her in her arms, she felt something she had never experienced. The sensation of truly being home. I never stopped looking for you, my daughter. I never stopped believing that one day we would meet again. Between tears and hugs, mother and daughter began to rebuild 15 years of forced separation. And outside, in Jennifer's pickup truck, Centaur watched through the window, finally at peace, as if knowing that his mission had been accomplished. 3 months after the events that changed her life forever, Rachel woke up in the small house on Flower Street to the sound of birds singing outside. For the first time in 17 years, she woke up knowing she was free to go out, to make her own choices, to live her own life. Good morning, my daughter. Laura appeared at the bedroom door with a steaming cup of coffee. Even after all this time together, there were still moments when the two looked at each other as if they couldn't believe it was real. Good morning, Mom. The word still sounded sweet on her lips, carrying all the years when she couldn't pronounce. During breakfast, Laura was leafing through some papers she had received the day before. More documents arrived from the lawyer. The case against Owen is progressing well. Rachel nodded. Knowing that Owen Thompson would face the legal consequences of his actions brought her a sense of justice, but also relief. He was in preventive custody, awaiting trial for document forgery, false imprisonment, and other crimes related to the case. And what about the farm? Asked Rachel. It will be sold to pay for damages and legal costs, but there's good news. Jennifer managed to secure a permanent adoption for Centaur. Rachel's eyes lit up. Really? Who's going to take him? Laura smiled. A family that has a rural property nearby. They have experience with horses and promised that you can visit him whenever you want. After breakfast, Rachel got ready for another day at the municipal school where she had started studying. Resuming studies after years of isolated education hadn't been easy, but she was determined to make up for lost time. Teacher Laura called a student when she arrived at the school. Is your daughter going to help us with the science fair project today? If she wants to, Laura replied, smiling at Rachel, but that's her decision. That was one of the things Rachel valued most in her new life, having her own decisions respected. Each choice, no matter how small, was a reaffirmation of her freedom. During the break, Rachel received a visit that moved her. Jennifer appeared at the school bringing a surprise with her. I came to take you for a special visit, said the veterinarian, her eyes shining. Half an hour later, they were at the property where Centaur had found his new home. The horse was in a wide pasture, surrounded by other horses, but as soon as he saw Rachel approaching, he separated from the group and galloped in her direction. Hi, boy, she said, extending her hand. Centaur pressed his muzzle against her palm, as he did in the old days, but now there was something different in his eyes. It was peace, contentment. He's happy here, commented Jennifer, but he always gets more excited when he knows you're coming to visit him. You two have a special connection, said Carmen, Centaur's new owner. It's as if he had been the guardian angel you needed. Rachel stroked the horse's neck. That's exactly what he was. As she watched Centaur run freely across the pasture, Rachel reflected on everything that had happened. If someone had told her months ago that her life would completely change thanks to a horse, she wouldn't have believed it. But there was the proof that sometimes heroes come in unexpected forms. Jennifer, she said after a moment, thank you for everything. If you hadn't believed in me, You were brave, Rachel. You had the courage to seek the truth and to ask for help when you needed it. That's no small thing. That afternoon, back at the house on Flower Street, Rachel sat with Laura on the porch, observing the movement on the street. Children played on the sidewalk, neighbors chatted over fences. Life happened in a simple and natural way. Sometimes, I still can't believe I'm here, confessed Rachel. Sometimes I can't either, admitted Laura. I spent so many years dreaming of this moment that it seems surreal. You never gave up looking for me? Never. Not for a second. I knew you were alive, knew that one day the truth would come out. Laura took her daughter's hand. Mothers have an instinct, you know. Just like Centaur had the instinct to protect you. That night, Rachel received a call from Detective Carla Mitchell. Owen's trial was set for the following month, and she would need to testify. I'm ready, she said, surprising herself with her own firmness. I want other people to know the truth. Do you have enough strength for that? Asked Laura, concerned. I do. And if my story can help other people in similar situations, then it's worth it. Weeks later in court, Rachel told her story with a courage she didn't know she possessed. She spoke about the years of isolation, about the lies, about how a horse had been the catalyst for discovering the truth about her origin. Owen was sentenced to 12 years in prison, Dr. Henry to 5 years. Justice finally had been served. 6 months after the trial, Rachel was finishing her high school education through an intensive course. She had plans to study veterinary medicine, inspired by Jennifer and by the special connection she discovered she had with animals. Centaur changed my life, she wrote in an essay about overcoming that she wrote for school. He taught me that sometimes we need to trust our instincts, even when the whole world around us seems to say otherwise. He showed me that truth always finds a way to come to light. One Sunday afternoon, Rachel and Laura visited Centaur together. The horse was even more beautiful, his coat shining under the sun, running freely across the pastures. I think he knows he fulfilled his mission, commented Laura, watching the animal. What mission? Protecting you, guiding you back home. Rachel smiled, watching Centaur gallop with other horses. No, Mom, he didn't guide me back home. He guided me to freedom, and freedom is what brought me home. The sun was setting behind the hills of Lakeside, painting the sky with golden hues. For the first time in her life, Rachel knew exactly where she belonged and where she was going. And, somewhere deep in her heart, she was certain that Centaur knew it too.